So without any further ado, let me go ahead and talk about an interesting session. So ladies and gentlemen, it is said that aspirations are important. They are the ones that make a difference. And when we are talking about this upcoming topic, it's about the payment aggregators, the PAs, who are currently at the heart of India's and, in fact, global digital commerce boom. And the question, the pertinent question, or the huge aspiration that we're talking about is, how does an entire industry scale 10x? Yeah, we don't just talk about double, right? We talk about 10x. So, to answer such an intriguing and challenging question and shed light on the way forward, we have curated a brilliant panel that boasts of distinguished trailblazers and leaders. And please join your hands as I invite on stage, first up, a moderator for this particular session, Mr. Rajesh Desai, co-founder, MD and CEO, Lyra Network. A very warm welcome to you. It's a privilege to have you here. Welcome. And do not stop your applauses as I invite some really special guest speakers and part of our fintech community. Mr. Take-san, CEO, NTT Data Payment Services India. Take-san, arigato for coming all the way here for this session. Thank you so much. Let's also hear it now for Dr. Atul Mehta, CEO, Pay10 India. A very warm welcome to you, and a pleasure and a privilege to have your presence here. Thank you so much for joining us here. And last but not the least, Ms. Tanya Naik, Head of Online and Omnichannel Business, Pine Labs. To the lady, let's give her a huge round of applause once more. We have women taking the seat across all levels, and we're so proud of you being here. Thank you so much. With that, I leave the strings of the conversation in your able hands, Rajesh. Please take it forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please have a seat. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Take-san. Thank you, Atul. I'm very happy to be a part of this diverse and distinguished panel, which I have the pleasure of moderating. It's always a great sense of pride when you see different people in the same panel with a lot of intelligence, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, because I'm working for the same cause of building a better and a stronger digital society for the future. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you for all the panelists out to be here. I'm very happy to be a part of this, moderating this session. And if I can set the context and set the tone for this entire discussion, PAs, as we are fondly called, payment aggregators, are at the center of today's fast evolving India's digital economy. One will not know, but these PAs, and I again say fondly called, these PAs are those unseen bridges who are actually plugging or building dreams, commerce to dreams, transforming transactions to opportunities, and probably building ideas to realities. So these are these PAs, who are working at the back end to ensure that everybody has a sustainable environment. I mean, look at that transaction, UPI transaction done by a tier 3 street vendor. It is as seamless as a UPI transaction probably done by a Mumbai-based luxury retail outlet. So that's how seamless it is. India, in fact, if I speak of, is a hotbed of innovation. And India, as a matter of fact, is globe's digital payments laboratory, where probably a chai wala in Bihar or Patna would collect payments via QR through students. Or maybe a farmer would collect payments for his seeds. So it is changing. The transactions are changing. Everything is changing in India. So I think we are at this right point of time. But what we don't realize now is this: behind these inspirational stories lies a giant power ecosystem. And this power ecosystem is run by PAs, or the payment aggregators. So these are the PAs who are actually stitching together merchants, consumers, the whole ecosystem as a whole. So they have a lot of role to play. Now this panel which is here, these experts which are here, they're going to dwell and speak about looking at timelines, structural challenges, probably growth drivers. The question here is not if this ecosystem is going to grow or not. The question here is if it's going to go 10x, by when and how. That's the question out here. Leadership will look at and share perspectives on probably partnerships, collaboration, regulatory anticipation, a lot of things, parameters, which will help to scale this PA industry business 10x. Not just scale, but scale sustainably so that it becomes viable and feasible for merchants, consumers, and the entire ecosystem as a whole. So that's my thought on this. So before we get into this, probably a big round of applause for all my speakers, please. A huger one, a bigger one. Thank you so much. This really pumps up the audience and really pumps up the speakers as well. So maybe some opening thoughts from all the speakers, Tanya, to start with. The changes which PAs have gone through in the last few years. Maybe for all the speakers as well.
First of all, thank you, Rajesh, for that lovely introduction. It's a privilege to be on this panel with so many years of experience. Well, how has the industry changed? I think it has changed in many ways. The first piece would be how, as PAs, we've really converted ourselves from being just acceptance partners. So if you think many years ago, our job was relegated to bringing the merchant a card acceptance layer or a UPI acceptance layer. And it was more about connecting the merchant to a network. Today, I see that completely changed. Most of us have actually become full stack or commerce enablers, where we're providing value-added services which is beyond just payment acceptance. So whether it's what we do at Pine Labs, whether it's about affordability, whether it's about loyalty, whether it's about fraud management, whether it's about analytics, there's really that entire stack of solutions which are just adjacent to payments that we're now enabling. And that's been like a huge change and a positive one at that. The second piece I would say is the regulation. So obviously we were not regulated. We were governed directly by the AD banks that used to power us. We now are directly regulated by the RBI, so that brings in a lot more trust, security element, and our direct regulation also brings back the power in our hands to really provide the best services to our merchants. The third piece I would say is the reach and the penetration that PAs have had. So while earlier most of us PAs were relegated to being partners to the large e-commerce enterprises and the large firms, today, PAs are enabling commerce and payments for the smallest of the smallest merchant, whether it's a QR code at a tea seller's, whether it's a D2C brand in a tier 2 or a tier 3 location that we're trying to enable. I think that's been a significant change. So we've really transpassed from just being a large commerce player's partner to really being a partner for everyday use cases, helping the smallest of the smallest merchants to start attracting their consumers. And last but not the least, as I said, we are now a value-added services player, not just a payments partner. So that's how I would sum it up.
Thanks for your thoughts. Takishan, something for you?
Yes. So maybe with me, it's a little bit different perspective compared with other countries which we manage, like Japan and Thailand and Malaysia. So I came here 2020 at the time COVID-19 start. And also next is regulation come, as Tanya-san mentioned, payment license. And next is UPI. Of course, UPI is there, but MDR restriction coming. So much dynamism happens. So we need to train by ourselves, shaping by ourselves, and optimize by ourselves. Through the 5 years, it has a value of 20 years with other ASEAN countries. That's I feel. So much very high density and trained by ourselves and find like a surviving strategy. Like Tanya-san mentioned, what is the value-added service we should focus on? What kind of integration is required to stickiness for the enterprise client? What kind of new stretch of the value chain? These kind of more strategic way of thinking, and also at the same time, more strategic operation and robust system and stable operation is required. That's we felt only 5 years. It's a value of 20 years as an ASEAN country. That's my impression. Thank you.
Thanks for your thoughts. Atul?
Very good afternoon to you all. One of the Bhagavad Gita shlokas says, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. That means yoga is excellence in action. So I personally feel that Fintech has had a lot of action over the last decade or so, and now we need to move towards the excellence part of it. We've spent the last decade or so in building the rails in onboarding merchants, onboarding customers, so on and so forth. I feel the next decade will be about 3 things: scale, trust, and intelligence. Scale as in scaling it up to multiple transactions per second, scaling it up across services, or as at Pay10, as you know, like we have a PAPG, PACB, and PPI, all three services, under one platform. We also need to scale up to billions of transactions per day, per hour, per minute. That's the scale we are bringing up. Trust, after all, we are dealing with public money, okay? And trust, we need to ensure that people trust in us, and as Tanya also told about RBI regulating us. So that extra factor of trust comes in. Intelligence, I feel Fintech is not about transactions. Fintech is not now about transformation, transforming people's habits or transforming money movement. So I feel scale, trust, intelligence are the three factors that will define the next decade of growth. And as for growing 10x, it's not a question of if we'll grow 10x. It's a question, the topic is how and when. I add one more point to it. What do we want to grow 10x in? GMV, margins, profitability? I personally feel I want to grow 10x in terms of ease of money movement for the people.
Thank you, Atul. And since you're all fond of numbers, let me throw some numbers at you. UPI surged to, I think, 24.5 lakh crore transactions in the month of August, growing about 20 billion transactions, The PA market is expected to grow with a compounded annual growth rate of about 14.5% to 20%. The digital payments industry in India is growing at a staggering rate of 44.5% and the value about 12.1%. India accounts for 48.5 to 49% of the globe's real-time payments. So I think we're at the right place at the right time. We just need to see how we grow, how we scale ourselves, and be sustainable as well. So let's dwell into all the questions, Tanya. My first question to you in this discussion would be, what is the realistic timeline we see at 10x, and what do you think are the key drivers to drive this?
Yeah, it's a very tricky question because growing 10x is, I wouldn't say easy because scale is hard even in payments. And if you just look at the way UPI has scaled, I would say realistically it would be a 5 to 7 year time frame. But it wouldn't only be about the scale because we all know the kind of margin compression that's anyways happening in this industry. So if you have to scale and you have to scale sustainably, there's a lot more that will go behind the rails. So why do I say 5 to 7 years is exactly that? It is important to grow the transaction margin as much as it is important to grow the transaction volumes. And Atul, I think, touched upon that. And that would come, again, from solving the hardest problems. Hardest problems being penetration in tier 2, tier 3 cities, really capturing the wave of some of these new age D2C brands and solving their problems, which goes really beyond payments as well. Solving for fraud analytics, real-time data management. I think, again, there's so much left to be unexplored in this category. As payment aggregators, we participate in the entire processing layer. We have so much insight into what goes on behind the scenes in a transaction. And if we were only able to provide those insights on the backs of processing the payment, I think we would be able to help the merchant grow while also managing fraud at his or her end. So I would say that would be a very, very big factor. And essentially, how do I still make sure that while I'm integrating, while I'm growing the business, I'm also making myself super sticky with the business? And that, again, comes from making sure that I'm integrated with the merchant's backend systems. So whether it's an ERP integration, whether it is payouts integration. So you really have to make sure that you've captured not just the payments layer, but also the adjacent layers. And that's what's really solving for the toughest problem, and that's what's taking time. And that's not just growing by volumes. It's growing sustainably for the entire ecosystem.
Great. That's a great point you made. And taking cue from what you have said, in terms of tier 2, tier 3 cities, India, I think, has seen a staggering growth of 118% in tier 2, tier 3 cities for UPI.
Yep.
On the same points, in tier 2, tier 3 cities, what do you think they will play a role? And since the fact that you come from borders, across the borders, what do you think cross-border and international expansion, how will they play or figure themselves out in terms of 10x growth for India?
Oh, yeah, thanks for the question. So tier 2, tier 3 means not like Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore, that means, but not rural area, of course. It's between. And it's most, aggressive improvement and modernize the city, I believe. So especially in the payment aggregator, not only the retail transaction, but also modernize of city process, like a legislation of some application form, and also tax and like a plate number of the car. So each industry of a city government has certain process and sometimes of settlement. We should deep dive each process and capture the data and the service as service, a SaaS service. So that's why how can expanding 10 times means not only focus on the settlement, but also the value proposition before the process, after the process for such kind of a tier 2, tier 3 city process. That's one of the key, I believe. And the second question about the cross-border perspective, maybe this is in my personal opinion. So actually, we entity has a multinational PA. It's Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, Hong Kong. We have a 6 PA. And now we focus on the PA to PA access through the cross-border payment. How we can secure each currency, each payment option bring to the India, and the Indian payment option to going to other country. That's kind of dynamism I feel certainly. Actually, yesterday's ceremony, we announced, like you, UPI going to France, that you did it, right?
Yeah.
So UPI bring to Japan, that's yesterday announced. That's kind of dynamism I certainly feel. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Expansion internationally is a way. Revenues from tier 2, tier 3 cities definitely will help in the staggering growth. And if I look at more figures, India is expected to reach $10 trillion, the digital payments market, by 2026, and $593 trillion by 28-29. That's staggering, absolutely exponential. And I think this is really going to help all of us. Atul, my next question to you would be, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, obviously, and business is never tricky. In fact, in life, everything is tricky. So what do you think are the potential roadblocks which would probably be a hurdle or hinder this expansion plans?
I would not like to call them roadblocks. I would like to look at the frontiers on which we need to excel.
Okay.
Okay. 3 frontiers: regulatory, your collaborations, and intelligence. I feel regulatory is something, especially with these 15 September guidelines that came out, it's a very progressive step from the regulatory authorities, and we at Pay10 always welcome those guidelines. And as Tanya also pointed out, that now being regulated by RBI gives us an extra advantage. I think this is something that we as an industry need to make sure that we don't even think of the gray areas. As I always say, 10,000 liters of white, 1 drop of black into it, it is black, it's not gray. So that's what we should see. Second is collaboration or capital. I personally feel that, again, I may rub some of us in the wrong way. We forgot how to make money while doing all this. Almost all of us are burning money, with few exceptions, Pay10 being one of them. And we feel that we need to grow sustainably, and what Tanya also pointed about adjacencies and offering services which people are willing to pay for. So if I can help someone make, say, 10 rupees, and if I charge them 1 rupee for it, they'll be happy, because net they are making 9 rupees. So we should do that. Third is intelligence. I feel talent is very scarce now, especially in this industry. Very few people, I can count on my fingers the people who I will trust for if I have to hire for a post. And that's why, when I go to colleges and when I go to universities to teach, which I do quite often, I keep telling people that, why don't you think of as a fintech as a career and as an option where you can excel in? So I feel regulatory, capital, and intelligence are the 3 frontiers that we need to excel on.
Yeah, Atul, thanks for your take on this. Tanya, we spoke about this earlier. This word razor is very dangerous and tricky. But when you have razor thin margins in your line of business, how do you balance growth with sustainability? Second question to this probably would be, given the fact that you have rising frauds with rising growth of business, how do you ensure cybersecurity and data privacy?
Yeah. So to your first point, structurally and by regulation, margins are only going to thin down. So we have to look beyond what we call as the core payment rail in order to grow sustainably. Just before this panel, I was listening to the biometric payments launch of Wibmo, and I thought that was great. And it's, even if you're just building core payments rails, if you're building an innovation on top of it, I think that's worthy of, selling at a premium. And all payment aggregators need to start thinking about not short selling themselves when they're bringing innovation to the fore, especially when it's also about just core payment processing. So whether it's about biometric authentication, whether it's about, again, adjacent revenue pools. So for example, if we have built an ecosystem of pay later players and partners, which we are offering to the merchant at checkout, that deserves to be sold at a premium, because we've been actually party to bringing almost 100 million consumers to that customer's checkout, to that merchant's checkout, which they would have ordinarily not have an access to. So what you really need to start charging for, and what you need to demand a premium for, is to grow the merchant's business as much as yours. And that will come by actually putting the merchant's commerce in the front of every single solution. So whether it's about faster payments checkout, i.e. the biometric authentication or the face-led authentication, to make sure that the payment is seamless, whether it is about giving in affordability solutions, whether it's about solving for reconciliation, simple solutions like reconciliation. I can't tell you how many merchants come back to us stating problems in it. And while it is so simple, actually the solution isn't so simple. So if you're building an engine for reconciliation, you're actually reconciling multiple payment methods, it's time we start to look at demanding a premium for that.
Time
As far
we look
as,
at
yeah.
demanding. Wow.
As far
That's
as
a great ask, and I would love to fall into that.
No, we should, and it should happen if we all come together, to be honest.
I agree. Yeah.
As far as data security and fraud management is concerned, see, I mean, PCI DSS and tokenization, these are like table stakes now. So as payment aggregators, as much effort that you're putting in payment processing, you have to put effort in fraud management and fraud prevention as well. And if we don't, obviously there are financial risks, there are regulatory risks, but also, I mean, merchants are not going to stick with you if you don't provide them a safe and secure platform. I do feel there is a lot of innovation still left in handling frauds at the time of the checkout itself. You should not allow the fraud to go through. You should be able to detect the anomaly at the time of the payment itself and not post facto. So there's a lot of work I think even AI can help in bringing to the platform so that you can prevent the fraud from occurring even before the transaction goes through. And that's where I think PAs should focus more on.
Absolutely. I think that takes you to the regulatory environment, extension of what you said in terms of frauds and regulations and compliances. According to you, what do you think the regulatory environment in India, how will it impact the growth of PAs, and what compliance challenges do you see as we move on?
I personally feel that regulatory environment in India is one of the most progressive in the world. Whenever I, talk to my counterparts in different countries or whenever I go there, I feel that we are one of the safest fintech, we are one of the safest financial ecosystems in the world that we have today. On the other side, if you look at what we as PAs can do is, we should, as I said earlier, should not look at finding the loopholes or should finding the way out of it. It is slightly greedy. It is slightly, I would say, inviting. लगता है कि अच्छा पैसा बन जाएगा वहाँ पे types. But the point is, look at it with a long term versus short term. Don't do a short term compromise into it. Regulations are evolving and guidelines are covering every area, especially with the new guidelines now covering the PAP and PAO and PACB also. So I feel that one, we should all look at progressive adherence rather than post facto adherence, that there was an audit, there were some observations, we corrected them. I personally feel we should all strive to have those audits where there is no observation. We should abide by it and we should look at it in progressively. And it is for our own good also. Because at the end of the day, we as a sector will survive only if there are more and more stricter regulations and there are no loopholes left for the fly-by-night operators to succeed.
So what we are saying in short is that the more the strict the regulator is, the more the better for us.
Yes, it is the better for us, and the more we take it in our own stride and we said this is happening for our own good. As we say, regulator is like your father. Father always feels the son is wrong, but the father is doing that for the son's benefit only.
Right. So to take this further, Takeo, a question similar to what I asked him. That was from the regulator's side, but from our side, from the PA side, what is that the PA can do to work with the regulators to create a favorable environment. What do you think is possible in this case?
Oh, yes. So actually, we feel such kind of a trend and sign that the self-regulatory body, so RBI regulator mentioned the philosophy and the legal structure very strictly, but the rest of the world, maybe payment guideline is going on. A PCI, maybe private association or same private association involving us, we also join the party and discuss each other what kind of a rule is the best in the organization. So such kind of an interactive discussion is going on with the RBI. As an industry, we make a ground rule, and RBI approves the rule, and also making audit rule. Such kind of an interactive way of thinking, we can think about it. But only one point, if we are expecting such kind of one regulatory aside is maybe I feel in Japanese or non-Indian persons, but I feel that a little bit price competition and maybe that's kind of a little bit bad competition in India, like a reverse auction, more focus on the price and the price. That sometimes I think impact to the compliance and also governance. So that's why sometimes maybe regulator also see such kind of fair trade law and also minimum threshold of RFP pricing. So that's maybe a standard for the other country. Maybe if we think a little bit side, so we can monetize the pool for the future improvement for the compliance and regulatory. That's what I'm just expecting.
And if I have to ask you, what is that one change which you want the regulator to do so that we are able to scale business at the same time maintain trust and compliance?
Frankly, say interactive rule. So they mentioned only the philosophy which they want to protect, but the rest of the expansion, the way of thinking is us. We can propose by ourselves. That is only the way.
Okay, thank you so much. Atul, to take next question to you. You know, the PA space in India, probably globally, is a hotbed of innovation where every day probably you have new emerging technologies. What is new today is old tomorrow. So if I have to ask you a question on technology adoption, what is that adoption a PA can do in order to ensure that we scale fast?
Yeah, so I spoke about growth in terms of three factors: scale, trust, and intelligence. I feel three things will drive this growth in terms of technologies: AI, blockchain, and IoT, Internet of Things. So AI will help us enable scale because you don't need to multiply the manpower to or multiply your physical infrastructure if you have AI in place. Blockchain brings the trust part into it, and IoT will bring in all the form factors, all the physical and the devices. Today you can tap and pay. You don't need to swipe your card or insert your card. I mean, soon it will come when you can pay through. You're already paying through your fingerprints. I envision a world where you can pay through your retina. You just look at the thing and you pay for it. That's it. So the world, that day is not far, I think. And that will also cover the part of trust, intelligence, scale into one. So I think all of these things and what we spoke about, the checkout features and finding fraud early, preemptive frauds. So those things if we can cover. So at the end of the day, we are giving from the global corridors to the tier 3, tier 4 Kirana stores, we are telling them that don't worry, this payment is going in the right direction from the right person to the right person.
Okay, thank you so much. Tanya, to you. On similar lines of technology adoption, there are so many new words which you keep on hearing every day. Embedded finance, tokenization, real-time statistics or dynamics, BNPL. So how do you think, what do you think in terms of these new technologies or new words which we hear every day? How do they make an impact, transformative impact to growth of PAs?
At the end of the day, it brings in a lot more customer trust and it brings in more merchant business. And I'll explain with each of the terms that you used, right? So if you think about tokenization, what is it? It's about storing your card on file so that the customer doesn't need to enter it again. But he or she also does not need to worry about the fact that the card credentials could get compromised. So if you have provided that technology, indirectly you've helped the merchant create a faster checkout, but you've also managed the security and trust so that the customer can come again and again to the same commerce site. So tokenization, to my mind, has enabled the merchant to build more trust on their website, and as PAs, we are enabling that technology for them. As far as real-time analytics is concerned, I think that basically changes who you are as a payments partner to being just a processing partner to a business partner. So again, imagine giving insights about why did that customer drop? Where in the sales funnel did that customer drop? Hey, was that a fraudulent, transaction? Was that an international phished card? Should I be able to stop it? I think those kind of insights that you give the merchant only makes his or her site far more reliable and trustworthy. So again, we're adding to the customer's business and value by delivering these additional services. What was your third point? Embedded finance. Yeah, embedded finance are again growth drivers. Growth drivers because you are bringing the power of Pay in 3. You're bringing in so many easy monthly installment options at the click of a button to a consumer who may not have had access to easy credit. And that's happening because USPA have actually aggregated a bunch of lenders at the back end and made it available at the customer's checkout point. And to my mind, that is super powerful because A, there is still so much opportunity for credit in India, and we can see that in the boom, whether it's in the credit card spends, whether it's in the EMI transaction growth, not just festive, but outside of it, whether it's in NBFC lending. That space is going to boom further. We already see a bunch of Gen Zs adopting to Pay in 3 everywhere in the globe. India's no different from that. So what are we doing there? We're simply adding a more easy, viable consumer base with access to credit to the merchant. So at the end of the day, you are really enabling a lot more to be done on the merchant's platform by offering all of these services. That's what I would say.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for those examples. Information is important, but at the same time, if you stick with examples and experiences, it makes them really stick. So I encourage all the speakers to share experiences, and your examples if possible, given the kind of experience you have. It will really help us in this discussion. Next question to you, Taki-san. It's a very crowded marketplace. Lots of competition, lots of competitive players coming in. How do you stand out in this competition? And what do you think is the competitive landscape is going to evolve in the next few years?
Thanks for the question. So actually, the title 10x, but the competition cannot expand the market size. So that's why, of course, we can deeply inside the solution basis and focus on the issue of the client. That, of course, we should do. But as a standard practice, one is horizontally or vertically. Vertically side is we think about the value chain. Everyone do it. Like focus on the B2B payment and ARAP, and also like issuing the side, issuing the prepaid card and loan the prepaid card. Maybe some of the PA, include us, try to stretch value proposition step by step. But the process is actually the experience perspective. It's organically we try to expand. It's a little bit difficult. It take a time and capability having also 5 years, 10 years. So some player do like a business alliance and also M&A activity to expanding the value proposition. This way of option, maybe some top 5 player, top 10 player has already used it and grows. Right? And the horizontal perspective, so that's why some of the PA has already entered the Middle East market and the Asian market. So go globally. But the infrastructure is an Indian platform, try to export in the overseas. That's kind of way, vertically, the value proposition changing, and also horizontally, globally. That's kind of way, how not compete each other, but how we can expanding a value proposition as a PA. That's kind of dynamism I feel it. Thank you.
Tanya, just to correlate this with sports, since I'm an avid sports player, partnerships play a very important role when it comes to sports. Look at T20 Asia Cup, which just happened last week, where our opening partnership between Shubman Gill and Sharma played a phenomenal role in terms of winning the Asia Cup. So partnership, I strongly think, plays a very important role when it comes to any success. In our line of business, when it comes to PAs, where do you see partnership contributing? And do you really feel that collaborating with banks, fintechs, NBFCs is going to really change the scene or the scenario of PA growth?
Yeah, I mean, partnerships are central to our growth, our existence, to be honest. So, I mean, without banks, I cannot actually provide an acceptance or an issuance solution or a tokenization solution, all of the good stuff that I just spoke of prior to this. So, I mean, they are not only like manufacturers of some of our solutions, but they'd also help distribute some of our solutions. So, I would see like a complete collaborative effort with a bank partner. With NBFC, it's again, they're manufacturers of some of the best innovations when it comes to lending, the Pay-in-3, the BNPL solutions. So they bring in a lot more growth levers for my PA business to grow further by offering those as checkout services to my merchants. Banks, again, are equally important when it comes to the lending business, and their EMI platform is very, very central to growing some of our merchants' commerce platforms as well. When it comes to even third parties like ERP integrators, they're super critical to our growth, because whether it's a hotel, whether it's a retail store, whether it's a restaurant, all of them work at the backs of an ERP integrator, whether it's an SAP or an Oracle either. And if we don't integrate with them, actually your business isn't sticky anymore. So I look at every single partnership like this, and we at Pine Labs as well, look at every single partnership as critical to our existence. Without any of these partners, nor would we have a market to go to, nor would we have a product to sell to. And we build on top of their rails.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tumtal. In terms of business, I've been running Lyra for the past 18 years along with my entire team. What has come to our knowledge, our experience, the fact that if you try to stick with what you have and do not enter new areas, you're lost. So the ultimate experience here is that you need to step yourself, your team, your organization to new areas if you need to survive. On these lines, my question to you, Takishan, is what are those new areas you see in terms of opportunities, and how can you really leverage on that?
Yes. So we have two options. One is expanding the value proposition, and the other is like a technology perspective. So what we are thinking is like at the time to exposure our data, what's meaning, the AI is coming. What's the value of AI with us? Is one, of course, integrated with AI-based MCP interface like this, easy to integrate, one-line code. And the second is we have plenty of data pool, transaction data and master data of the client and also consumer. But how we can open safely to the agent of the client or ERP company. So we have integrated 200 educational ERP company. They have a console for the student or the teachers to check the transaction. But if we can open our data pool very security safely to them, they can make how can I say, agent to how to guide. Oh, my payment has gone, or how my payment has certainly paid. It's such kind of exposure our data safely, and also how can I say, security and also governance. That we can make a secondary market, I believe, the new market between ERP and us. That's kind of a dynamism we need to create by ourselves. If not, only focus on the PA is a little bit shrinking, so that we need to break ourselves and making a new market between that. That is my way of thinking.
No, I completely agree with that. I think polishing yourself into new areas is of utmost importance. I'm very gung-ho about it. The fact that we started as a Lyra started as a technology company in India, but then has over a period of time grown from its connect business only to connect and collect. We have taken UPI to the Eiffel Tower of Paris. So these are new areas which we have ventured into. And I think it's a need of the hour, if you really need to sustain yourself in this competitive market, that you look and tap wherever possible new areas. With that, my question to you in terms of not new areas, but from financial inclusion perspective, if you ask me a PA, since I'm a PA is not just a key driver for digital payments. It is also an enabler of financial inclusion. By actually creating and offering these financial services to the underbanked and the unbanked, you're actually empowering every Indian citizen to participate and contribute strongly in this digital economy. So on this question, or on this note, in terms of financial inclusion, how do you see PAs play a role in FI in India?
Yes, I personally, and in the last 3, 4 years at least, I've actually seen a mindset shift, especially in the PA community. For example, whenever I am asked who is your biggest competition, my answer is my biggest competition is cash or non-digital. In fact, only today morning somebody was telling me, how does it feel like to be with your competition on the stage? I said, who? Tanya or Rajesh or Takishan. They are my friends actually. So because all of us are working towards one cause, we are growing our respective companies that everyone does. But the real competition is cash or non-digital. And that is where thinking about tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and that's what I said earlier also. From the global corridors to the smallest kirana stores in a tier 4, tier 5 town, we need to make sure that we cater to their needs. And that is where our responsibility also comes into picture. It's not just about clocking transactions or making money. It's about being responsible to make sure that we make our product or platform as easy for everyone to use. And that's also where we at Pay10 always feel that having a whole gamut of services, be it cross-border payment or be it the last rupee UPI transaction, all of us should enable these things as much as possible and that's where the real growth, the 10x growth will come in ease of making money movement for the end users.
Great, thank you so much. I think given the short span of time we have, I think it's time to call up the discussion. But having said that, I think India is on the cusp of revolution where India is changing the way it sells, buys, banks, and does business. But let's not forget the transformative impact all the PAs have made in terms of offering their giant ecosystem to ensure that every individual sitting in this room and every individual sitting outside this room has contributed to what India is today. So I think all of us deserve a huge round of applause for this. And Jai Hind. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, probably we have time for about a question or two from the audience, if any.
We will have to.
Yeah, I think that's one lady. Maybe one question.
Okay, just one question. We would have loved to have more. In fact, I may also have a few questions, but then with respect to time. Please go ahead. Can we have a mic? One sec. We'll give you a mic so that the audience can listen as well. Please do introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kajal here from ASK Investments. I just wanted to understand, you have been saying that sharing the data about how the customer behavior on the background has been to the merchant. So is it possible and is it a monetizable revenue stream for PAs for future? And currently is anything being done in this line? And I suppose many of the platforms like Myntra or XYZ of those steps are already doing this. Yeah. So are PAs doing that?
So we don't share data, and that's definitely not something we will ever do. Because A, we don't commingle data belonging to one merchant with another. And owing to the DPDP guidelines, many of this will anyways undergo a change, even what the merchants are storing today. But what we do is provide intelligence to the merchant on what kind of customers he or she should go after for what kind of campaign. And this we do even today. So can I give the person that intelligence? Can I give the person intelligence of where is it that the customer has actually dropped off? So that you can target the same customer better. Because finally, the customer belongs to the merchant. It doesn't belong to Pine Labs. And that sort of service is definitely monetizable because you're genuinely adding value to the merchant's commerce business. And we do have such services.
Is it currently being done too?
We do, yes.
Thank you.
I think sharing data intentionally or unintentionally is a dead end for that business. So I think no respected organization in India who wants to continue business will do that at any cost. So I think that's taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you have been a wonderful audience. I think you also deserve
Thank you.
a huge round of applause. Thank you so much.